Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Greet the Week. I am Jan Moray, and I'm with my co-host, Mona Duncan, here. And we will be talking to you about the art of saying no. So I guess I never thought about there being an art to saying no. So what are you thinking about, Mona?
Well, the thing of it is the person that has gotten into a habit of saying yes to everything and may not know how to say no, they do have to kind of develop an art to it. And no is one of those things as even children, we could say it and people would sometimes, most times, especially loving, caring parents, say, oh, well, okay, that was a no. And
yeah, children don't seem to have any problem saying no. At least toddlers don't, right?
Right. The toddlers don't. And I never shall forget my little niece one time. She and my sister and I, she was like 2 years old, and my sister was trying to get her to do something, and she would do anything my sister asked her. And then I would ask her to, we were playing a little game, and I would ask her to do the same thing, and she'd say, no.
Oh, whoa.
It's just sassy as could be. We made a big game out of it. And I never shall forget, whenever we finished playing there, I went over to her and I picked her up and I hugged her, and I said, I want you to keep that no strong all your life.
Aw.
Because, in such a sweet way, but no, the answer is no, I'm not doing that.
Right.
And making your own decision. And so, I'm pretty good at saying no. I don't know that I always have been, especially with my sister. Anything she told me to do or whatever, I thought I had to do it until I finally, and it took a while, that I began to say no to her.
Yeah.
And without
she fooled for quite a while, huh?
It was what?
She had you fooled for quite a while. She taught her younger sister that she's supposed to listen to her.
Yes, definitely. So I thought, it's plain and simple, and I thought we would just look at some different situations of where people say yes to, and maybe some of the reasonings behind it. And it turns out to be, sometimes here's my hands and I'm holding. So yeah, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. And we just get real bowed down.
Right.
And we begin to, no, I can't do that. That I've taken on too many things. And so sometimes it's looking at and sorting through, but realizing that no is a complete sentence. And we can just graciously decline. We don't have to give a big, long explanation as to why not.
That's a hard one, too. People think that if you say no, you have to explain. You have to have a good reason to say no. But you really don't.
You really don't. You can just simply come back with, I'm choosing not to.
Right.
Not at this time, or I choose not to, or why are you doing that? Well, because.
Of course, then on the other side of that, there's people who give you an excuse that really is an excuse. And you know that it's not real. You just want to tell them, just be honest with me. It's okay to say no. You don't have to make this thing up that I know you're not doing as a reason.
Right. But even, if you do need to explain, which until sometimes when you get in the hang of it, you do, want to give a little explanation, make it brief and short, and definitely no blaming anywhere,
right.
Not even on yourself, just the fact that it's that not at this time. And as you begin to realize, what am I trading off when I do say yes to things? Because everything has a trade-off. And, what am I giving up by saying yes to doing this that may lead to some kind of a difficulty or a discomfort? And sometimes saying no is getting out of your own comfort zone. Mm-hmm. Or maybe saying yes or giving in as a means of trying to be liked,
Right. Oh, definitely.
I want to be, and if I do this, then surely you'll like me.
Yeah.
The thing of it is that that's no guarantee.
No.
No guarantee whatsoever. They'll just be glad that you're doing it, and they don't have to.
Right.
You've taken on that responsibility. So it's realizing that saying no can be very beneficial to you, even though it does maybe a little uncomfortable initially. And being your own timekeeper as to how much time you have and what would make stress on that time, and getting over that FOMO, that fear of missing out.
Fear of missing out.
If I don't participate, if I'm not a part of this, then I won't be a part of it, but sometimes it's okay to be your own person. Matter of fact, all the time it's okay to be your own.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes you really do want to help, but it's just, you just have to really look at what all you're committed to. Can I really handle everything? And am I going to hurt myself because I'm going to become stressed because I agreed to do all these things? I committed, way over committed what I actually have time to do.
Yeah. And then sometimes because we do something once, it seems to have set a precedent.
Right.
Oh, you always do this. No, I did it one time, but that doesn't mean I'm going to continue to do it. And as we can realize that, and also because, well, but you're so good at that. Just because you're good at something does not mean that that's the one that is your calling in life.
Right.
And
right.
even if it is your
so dependable.
Yeah.
The dependable one. Yeah.
Yeah, and even if it is your calling in life, that doesn't mean that, that you have to give the, I went to a conference not too long ago, and it was on elder care and the end of life. Anyway, the guy there was 4 people presenting, and this one person, he says, well, we have if you want a consultation, we hold these seminars to give information. Says if you need more than that, call, we'll have a consultation together. Well, this one guy was sitting at my table, and he said, yeah. He said, I called him, said I had a few questions, and he says, well, let's make an appointment. It's $250 an hour. He says, I just have a couple of questions. He says, well, okay. And I mean, the guy he was firm. He was consistent. That was their policy,
Yeah.
I'll answer any questions you have. He says, let's, set a time. And so I thought, well, that is really neat. I appreciate someone that has that much know within themselves and that confidence within themselves that they can do that. And to just hold your guns. That I've just, well, you did that one time, but I've decided I'm not this time.
Right.
And that sometimes can be saying no to someone. Even if I was working with a lady the other day that was saying yes to everyone, even though they were taking much advantage of her. And we just began to practice saying no.
Yeah.
Because we began to look down at just what was the reason, why are you putting up with all of this stuff, putting more stuff on and more stuff on. And kind of the bottom line was she didn't want to be alone.
Oh.
And I said, well, what's worse than being alone? That's pretty bad. We do need people, but we need them in good, healthy relationships.
Right.
So what is worse than being alone? And she couldn't come up with anything, so I made a couple of suggestions. I said, well, is being disregarded as a human being worse than being alone?
I bet you hadn't looked at it that way.
Right. I said, is being lied to worse than being alone? I said, is being stolen from because someone had taken her credit card and had used them? She gave it to them, she gave them permission to use 20, but not 700.
Oh, wow.
I said, being robbed from, is that worse than being alone? And as you begin to look at, what? Maybe it's not so bad to be alone. Maybe it's not so bad to say no. Maybe I can. And so we began I said, well, let's just give some situations. I said, I really would like you to loan me some money. And she looked at me kind of funny. I said, what are you going to tell me? She said, no. And I told her a couple of chores that I'd like to have. I said, but you don't have anything else to do. Would you come over and do this or come over and do that? Would you wash my 500-pound Great Dane? And she began to make a joke out of it. She began to see that I was playing with her.
Right.
And she began to say, no. And was just, when I asked for that 500-pound
Great Dane
dog to be washed and groomed, said, no, I will not. I have a bad back. But anyway, she began to feel the power of saying no.
Mm-hmm.
And taking her life back. And so it does become an art. And sometimes we may squeak it out, may be like the mouse that roared to say no to someone. But it's empowering to be able to do that.
And sometimes that no starts out a little weak. And then as you gain a little more confidence in saying it, it'll become stronger and you'll be more convinced that that's the answer you need to give.
Mm-hmm. And to check out what our viewpoint of saying no is. Does it mean I don't like you? Does it mean I'm not being nice? Does it mean, well, we can put all kinds of, that it's expected of me. Sometimes we don't say those no's because of the hidden messages that we are thinking that we're receiving.
Right.
And
those messages are important to figure out, to think about, to see, is there some hidden message that I'm telling myself that is keeping me from being able to say no? What am I thinking that they're thinking? Well, she's thinking at first that they wouldn't like her, but what else is she thinking? Holding her back from being able to say no.
Begin to look at, and then maybe saying no, like to not only a friend, a neighbor, a coworker, whatever, or a family member putting something on us, but also saying no to whether it is sales pressure or whether it is the fact that we just want to buy something. And it would be more judicious to say no to it.
Yeah, say no to ourselves.
Yeah.
To what we want.
Right, say no to ourselves. And it's to realize that everything has 3 price tags. Whether it's something that you're shopping for and going to buy, whether it's a random thing, whether it's just that compulsive shopping or whatever, the compulsive wanting, that everything has 3 price tags. Not only is it what it cost initially dollar-wise, but it also is the emotional attachment that we have to it as to whether or not I got this just to give me clout, but it turns out not giving me clout. I never shall forget the guy at a retreat that I was doing. He was new and he bought this brand new vehicle, and for about 2 weeks he was big man on campus. And then people had ridden in his car, they'd driven his truck, there wasn't a big deal anymore to rush out and see it and all that kind of stuff. And the counting of how much it was owed,
right,
how much that dented into his other income and so forth, he began to realize, oh, wait a minute, maybe I need to have buyer's remorse, and it's okay to do that, and it's okay to sell it, and it's okay to, you need to take care of yourself in the process of all those things. And sometimes we buy things and say, well, it's just $1. Well, it's just $5. Well, it's just $10. All those little just add up. And it's looking at it. It's that, is this something on a scale of 1 to 10? How much do I want to do this? How much do I want to buy this? How much do I want to say yes to this? Give ourselves some kind of a scale before. And if someone asks us for something that, rather than just saying a blatant no, think about it a little bit. Let me put a little pause here. Let me think about this to see if I want to do that. And then evaluate with yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. Will you use it? Will you do it? Will it be nurturing to you? Will it be extending? Will it be something that is going to be a dread, or is it something that's going to be a joy?
Yeah. Or to think back to the last time you bought a new car, and how long did that feeling last? I think that works with clothing too. I mean, you see these stacks of, you see in your closet all these clothes you never wore. It's like, well, I just had to have this thing. I had to buy this. And so why do I feel the need to go buy some more stuff now? It's just going to hang in my closet like everything else that's hanging in my closet. So to think back, to try to remember what it was like. Yeah, the initial excitement about wanting to buy something is pretty great sometimes, but it can wear off.
Yeah. So being aware of our time, being aware of our income, being aware of our talents, all of these things can help us to budget what we say yes to or what we say no to.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, budget everything you have.
Yeah.
And see if it's going to fit. And if it, again, will it be nurturing, or will it be, we always want to do what's more effective. And it has to be for us. Love yourself enough to take care of you. It's not putting anyone down. And then see a challenge in how that you can begin to say no to some things. You know, less is more. Less is more. If you have less clutter, then you have more room. If you have less commitments, then you have more time.
Right.
If you have less stress, you have more joy. So I always like to look what it is. If I say no to this, what am I saying yes to? And also like to look and evaluate, if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? What am I saying no to? Because everything has a trade-off.
Yeah, and that thing I'm saying no to, do I value that more than this thing that I'm saying yes to?
Right, right. And give a value to it, you know, on a 1 to 10, on a 1 to 10 scale, on a 1 to 5. And maybe before you said, well, things was this much, and it turned out to be a lesser amount. And then you would kind of realize, well, I thought that was, and evaluate whether or not we're evaluating correctly, or whether we're evaluating within reason, within bounds.
For me, it's not, when talking to another person, saying no to another person, it's not whether to say no, but it's how to say no without alienating the other person. It's the how that's important, not the whether.
It's an attempt to, definitely. Definitely. But it is also, just like we have to have enough love for self to say no to things or to say yes to things that are good for us, we also have enough love for self that even if someone else is offended, not to deliberately offend.
Right.
You know, not to go out with an intention to offend, but even if someone is offended, who owns the problem?
Mm-hmm.
And they're not making the problem our problem if it's not our problem.
Is there some advice as to how to say it in a kind way that doesn't offend the other person?
Well, I'll go back to an example that I used just this past week with a client. The one that was being lied to and all kinds of things. And I told this person, I said, I want you to know, I need you to know. And I like to come out with that a lot. This is something I need you to know. I need you to know that I care about you. I care very much. And I care how you are being treated. I care a lot about you. And I care enough to confront this issue. I care enough to, and I say this as kindly as I know how. You know, I'm getting the message that maybe you don't care a whole lot for you. And I care enough to help you learn to say no to some things if you're willing to. But again, you know, every person has a point of receptivity and they have a point of definite not receptivity. And if it's there, I mean, this may sound silly and simplistic, but we have 2 little kittens. And I love those cats, okay? But, I mean, well, they're cute. Well, it was a little stray cat that came up here and I fed it, and she had 2 kittens out in the field, and finally she brought both of them over here. One stays and one won't. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of rain the other day and storm. And the one little kitty stayed over here. It even found the little nest I made for it and stayed there. And the mama stayed over here. The mama got wet going back and forth, checking on both kitties. She was just worn out. She was stressed out. But you see, one person was willing to take the message and one person was not. And that mom was stressed out and I was concerned.
Yeah.
But there wasn't anything I could do about it. And if it's out of my control, then it's out of my control. And what all is not in my control is how someone receives the message. All I can be concerned about and do the best of my ability, and always evaluating to see how I can do it a little better, is giving a message in a way that is not super off-putting.
Right. Right.
It's just being as kind as it can.
You can be as sweet as you can, and the other person might still take offense to it. You can't control that.
Exactly. Just like working with the the convicts for 20 years. I worked with federal prisoners, and they had to come to my class in that particular, so I would give them what we were going into before they attended the class, and I'd go over the axioms of choice theory and so forth. And I told them, I said, all I can do is give you information. All you can do is give me information. The thing of it is how do you give it? Is it yeah? Is it, or is it dripping with honey? Whether it's nice to be kind or whether it's dripping with honey as in luring people in. Mm-hmm. See, we can, it depends on the motive of where it's coming from. And then also all you can do is receive information from someone else. But how are you receiving it? Do you receive it, nah? Or do you receive it as, I'm not about to hear that? And it may be, even if someone is talking to you in a yeah, I don't have to receive it in a yeah.
No.
I want to take it, I want to have this filter here that just automatically comes in. With God's grace, I want to have this filter here that all I'm hearing is the words. I don't want to try to see what I'm thinking is the hidden agenda behind it. I don't want to go with where they're coming from, what they're really saying. If they don't have the courage to tell me the words in words that we can communicate with, again, and I say this as lovingly as I know how, who owns the problem? And if it's not my problem, I'm not going to make it my problem.
Right.
But I will still...
You can't guess on what it's going to take to solve the problem because it's not your problem. And you can try all kinds of things to make it better for the other person, but you might be totally in the wrong area.
And negotiate and talk through. But here's the thing, is that, again, as much grace as I can muster, I will continue to hold you in high regard as a human being of infinite worth and value. Yeah. Whether you're telling me no or yes or whatever.
Right. There are a couple of comments in the chat. I don't know if you've seen it, Mona. The first is from Ingvar. He says, tidy the space of action. I know that you wrote that a little while ago. Ingvar, do you want to comment a little bit about what you meant there?
Yeah, because sometimes it's a little about how the person is receiving the message. Some people are addicted to having a bad self-esteem, like you have to put them down. They don't give up until you put them down, because that's how they perceive themselves. So like for instance, around where I live, we have a lot of gypsies begging for money, and if you give them money, they will always ask for more.
Right.
So then I see them as some people that are addicted to being put down. So when you kind of give them a shoulder, like just look the other way or something like that, they are perceiving themselves as some of the society, like they are getting themselves confirmed
that they're not worth anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, they keep pushing and pushing until they get that rejection.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So that is the space of action. Then you have, that is the trade action. Really. That is the neutral zone.
So they're looking for you to tell them no.
Yeah.
That's what they're expecting. They don't expect anything better than that. They expect.
They only trust to be put down.
You call that tidying the space, tidying the action? Yeah. Well, all we can do is, try to do that as best that we can. And and then Nancy has asked the consequences of saying no. Well, there's a consequence to everything. There's a consequence to saying yes. There's a consequence to saying no. And there are, well, no one answer fits all. There's no one size fits all. And so these are things that we talk about in these discussions are just suggestions and ways to look at different things. And then when is it okay to say no? Well, I would suggest my definition of stress is whenever we commit to, when we are living outside of our boundaries, when we are committing to things that we don't have the time for, the funds for, the energy for, the liking for, the whenever it is not good, but that we are causing stress on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say first and foremost to say no to things that would be an additional stress, whether it's on the budget, on the time, on the whatever it's on, would be a legitimate thing to say no to.
It just reminds me of just setting boundaries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can I add something here?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I just finished an intensive training, and in my intensive trainings, I always talk about when we're talking about schools and children and so forth. When do you say no to a child? When do you say no to someone else when they're requesting something or they're asking for something? And what I understood from Dr. Glasser was you say no as little as possible. And when you say no, you must have a reason, a purpose, a definite reason, and be able to describe that for the person you're saying no to. Because when you say no to someone, the purpose needs to have something that has to do with safety or survival. We look at our needs, has to have something to do with safety or survival, and have that reason that you can give to them for that. And because if we look at what no says to another person, it says, I'm not going to allow you to get your needs satisfied. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to say something to people about, we are not going to allow you to get your needs satisfied. We're putting up roadblocks to you getting your needs satisfied. So Dr. Glasser would say, instead of that, if it's not a safety or survival issue for a child or for someone else, say yes and make it a blanket yes as often as possible. But we can't always just say yes. There's a lot of things that have to come into play when we say yes to something. And you've been talking about saying yes to things that are beyond your capabilities, beyond your comfort zone. And I understand that. But when we say yes to someone who's asking for something, if we say yes if or yes and, we can put the parameters within their field of control. So it isn't that the parameters are when I decide to say yes or no. It's whether or not you can give me enough information about what you want and what's, how this is going to come, how it's going to play out, what's going to happen when you have the permission to do these things or have these things, then I can give you a yes. But for me to just say, well, yes, I'll think about it, or yes, maybe I'll decide tomorrow, or no, I'll think about it later, that's not putting any responsibility or any permission for the other person to work out the procedures, the consequences of what happened. So the yes if gives them those parameters. Yes if I know who's going to go to the party. I know when you're going to get home. I know how that you're going to be safe at the party. You could explain to me how that's going to happen. Yes, if it's within, it's not too much of a draw from my, from my financial status, and I can afford to give you this, this expenditure. Yes, if. Okay. So you see, it's if you give them some control over that, yes. It's not like you're being the bad guy and keeping them from getting their needs met. You're asking them to give you more information because you can't just say, well, yeah, just whatever, it doesn't matter. It does matter. Things do matter. It matters to me as a parent, it matters to me as a teacher, it matters to me as a person. I can't just give you everything. Like you were saying, you have to do something that's within your means. It's not going to put you into an uncomfortable space. So yes, if gives them the parameters. And if they can create those parameters within that yes, if, or the yes, and, then it's a yes. And we don't have to say no. But often with little kids, we want to say, no, 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 you can't do that. And that keeps people from meeting their needs.
Well, like everything, it is so multidimensional. There are so many different ways of looking at whether it's yes or no, or maybe so, or certainly, or there are just so many different perceptions and different ways of seeing things that that there's to give the leeway and the freedom there to have your own boundaries, to maybe help set boundaries for other, or to have them maybe to define what their boundaries are so that we can know where it is and where we're going. And regardless, we always have to accept ownership for our part. Because the bottom line is the only person we have any control over is us. And the way we connect with or disconnect with others has a lot to do with how we receive or give the information.
And I think it's very different how you speak to a young child who's asking for something when you're trying to teach them how to be an adult, teach them the skills that they need to be successful as they get older, as opposed to somebody who's asking you to do something that, it may help get their needs met, but you don't have to be the person to do that. And you don't necessarily, and you really don't have any reason or means to do it for them, that you can say no. Is that,
Well, our church this next week is having a bake sale. And so, they're asking everyone to make cookies and cakes and all kinds of things and have it for the bake sale. And so I already have mine prepared, and it is a recipe, and it's the money inside for all the ingredients. And I'm going to give that to them, and someone can either give a couple bucks for the recipe and have some money inside and go buy it themselves, or someone can go buy the things and do the recipe for themselves. But we just need to know if we're going to. And my daughter, when she was little, and I see parents quite frequently, if a kid will whine for something, they want a cookie, they want this, they want that, and the parent all too often says something like, well, there are not any cookies. And the kid, that kid's pretty smart and knows there's cookies in there. Mm-hmm. And so regardless in anything I do, I want to be as honest as I possibly can be. And I would always tell us that there are cookies, but the answer is still no. We're not getting them. Not until after dinner, or not until whatever the appropriate time would be.
Yeah, it's no for now, but yes at the appropriate time.
Right.
So that's really a yes if. It's yes, and when you finish your dinner, you may have them. Or yes if you finish your dinner and you're still hungry. So that's a yes if. And that way it's within their parameters then. They haven't been said no to. If I just say no, they hear, oh, you don't want me to have any cookies. You never give me any cookies. You have all your rules. Okay, so you just say yes. If you finish your dinner and you're still hungry, you may have cookies. And that puts it in there into their responsibility.
Sounds like a deal. Well, our time is up. Thanks for joining us. It was good to see all of you and through your comments, and have a great rest of the week.
And just for everybody's information, next weekend is Memorial Day. Monday is Memorial Day here in the U.S., so we will not be doing Greet the Week next week, but we will be back in 2 weeks with another edition. So I hope to see you then.
And be safe.